I said, if I've got no experience and every employer is looking for someone who has got experience, how am I supposed to get that experience?
Wow.
And he stayed quite quiet on that one. And he said, yeah, I see your point. And I said I said, no hard feelings, thanks for your time, and went away. And that was when I decided that the only person that was really going to help me was me. So I started to look through the local papers to see what was going on and what people wanted and what they were looking for. And again, pre-internet, there was the Friday ad and the local newspaper. Lots of people wanted gardeners, but at the time, every gardener wanted to try and charge tree surgeon prices. So I sat down and I thought, I can cut grass, I can cut hedges, because we do that at home for mum and dad. I'll speak to my dad about borrowing all the machinery that he's got, and if I break it, I pay for it, and I'll service it. So he now doesn't have to service hedge cutters, chainsaws, a lawnmower. He's bound to go for it. Plus, he knows he'll be helping me out a bit, and hopefully I can pull on his heartstrings. So that was no chance, but he saw the business sense in it, so he went for it. And I set up my own gardening business. And ran that for 6 months, then went skiing for 6 months, and then came back. And the second year, we were so snowed under with work that I ended up employing 8 of my friends and running 3 different sites simultaneously throughout the whole of the summer. And that was when I really knew that it was going to be tough working for someone else. And I've done it a few times since, but it never really sits that well with me. I can work with people, I just can't work for them.
I see what you mean. Wow. So I mean, within that time when you are doing different bits and pieces like the gardening, and then going away traveling as well, did you have like a long-term vision of where you would want to be? Or was it just short-term, what was happening there and then?
That was extremely short-term, because I was a very, very different person in my 20s than I am today, 24 years later. I had no responsibilities. I'd lost my grandparents by this stage, which I wasn't very happy with. I struggled with it. I'd lost a friend to breast cancer when she was 27, and she was one of the nicest people at that stage that I'd ever met in my life. And I couldn't process that. I really struggled with it. And as far as I was concerned, as long as I wasn't hurting anyone else, I was going to live my life to the max. And that's why I became an extreme skier, because I was always looking for the next rush and that adrenaline buzz, and I was always looking to push myself further, and I knew that I could push myself harder and achieve more. And I guess is the first time probably that I started to surround myself intentionally with people that were a lot better at something than me. But I started to grow up. You get older, things change, and I didn't really see the kind of there was no longevity in that lifestyle. And a lot of my friends were a decade older than me, and they were saying, oh, it's great, you're doing it 18, 19, 20, 21. Keep doing it all the time you can, it's brilliant. But then as I was getting towards my early 20s, those same friends were starting to get really bad skiing injuries. And they were injuries that potentially could have stopped them from skiing. And I thought, I want to stop skiing on my terms, not because my body's given up. And then at 21, one of my friends unfortunately had quite a bad skiing accident. There was about 8 of us that used to be jumping off big cliffs and getting buried in avalanches and basically taking on Mother Nature. And at the end of the day, we're like tiny little ants compared to Mother Nature. So we were never going to win anyway. But we're too naive and stupid at the time to think that we were. Unfortunately, he got paralysed from the waist down, and he will spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. I was actually due to go out with him the day that happened, and I ended up getting called up to do some work because I was freelancing out there, and I took the work because the work always had to come first. And I got back in the evening and found out that he'd been in this horrific accident. He got flown back. He got repatriated to the UK, to Stoke Mandeville, and yeah, it's awful. I mean, fortunately he could have gone one or two ways. Either, you know, just completely struggled with that for the rest of his life, or grabbed the opportunities that then presented themselves, which they did, and he ended up being one of the top coaches for the under-21 UK tennis team. The wheelchair tennis team. Because he was an incredible tennis player. But he said to me, I was speaking to him and said, why don't you go pro? And he said, because the top 20 pros are about 10 times better than me. And he was literally kind of number 21 to 25 in the world at the time. He said, but it's light years difference. So, I started to put things a bit more into perspective, really, and started to rein my lunatic side in a bit more.
And sort of started to look at more responsibility and look into the future and your long-term plan, as it were.
And it always involved property. And everything I wanted to do involved property, because I could see the value in property investing. And again, this was pre-internet, so obviously it's a lot easier to get involved in stocks and shares now, and all kinds of other weird and wonderful investment strategies and areas and industries. But at the time, again, it was very difficult to get into that unless it was your career. But I knew property already. I've been surrounded by it. And that it was around about that time that we'd bought the place in France. We had that opportunity, and that kind of had really G'd I got really G'd up about it again. And I was also I helped two friends rebuild their chalets and restore them. We restored a French hotel that was Alpine hotel that was 4 stories high. And I loved doing all of that. And I was really passionate about it. And I thought, well, I don't want to become a builder, but I know I want to be in property. So everything I did, every decision I made for the next 15, 20 years, there was property involved in it, or the plan to be in property.
Wow. So at the time, as you were looking to get into that, was there any challenges that you perceived or you saw in there, and how did you go about sort of solving those or overcoming those?
The first one obviously is the go-to one that everyone goes to begin with, which is I haven't got enough money. So, and that's how I kind of fell into that first joint venture with my brother and my mum. Because we were sat there going, well, we can't really do anything with the money. I mean, 10 grand back then, I guess now would probably be about 30, maybe 40,000 equivalent. To kind of put it into perspective for today. And we said, well, why don't we get somewhere together? Because we can actually buy out there with the three of us. So that's what we did. And then I started to think, well, this would be quite cool because we could buy another one. But we've run out of money. So I've got to figure out how to earn the money to then go on. By which stage, that's when, obviously, like I was saying earlier, we kind of filtered it back to the UK. But we were all like everyone else back in the day, hell bent on homes under the hammer, and all the other. I think Sarah Beanie was starting to crop up at those times. Or slightly later. So, and all these property programs were starting to crop up out of nowhere, and so we were just consumed by it all of the time. And the one piece of the puzzle that I always struggled with was, how the hell do I finance it? And I then ended up. My best friend at the time, his father had a very, very big property development company in the southeast, and his achievement, or his plan for his achievement, was to build and sell the first £1 million penthouse outside of London. And that's what drove him and his business forward. And he did achieve that, and then he sold the business. but he did that development. That was his last development before. And I remember saying to him, I said, well, how do you finance it?
Yeah.
Because I'm struggling to finance just buying a buy-to-let. So how the hell do you put in 60 odd units in an old post office sorting house? Where the hell do you get the money from? And he said, well, we have investors. He said, but there was a combination at the time of private equity funding and also equity from banks.
Yeah.
But he said, I said, that must cost you a fortune, because obviously I was buying cars at the time on finance by that stage, and I borrowed £3,000, and it would I'd be paying 150 quid a month. So he's already starting to talk into millions, and my brain's whirring away thinking that's a hell of a lot of £300 to convert that, £150 to convert that. And it was I can't remember what it was now, but it was. I remember thinking, "There's no way I could sleep at night knowing that I owed that much money," which he didn't. It was his business, and there was obviously assets attached to that.
Yeah.
But that was my mindset. Was I couldn't make that connection, and I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
And it took me another 20 years. I mean, my transport company, I think all of my clients were involved in property. So they ran their own businesses, or they had family money, or X, Y, and Z. They'd sold businesses and they'd got a big pot. All of them had property. They all owned investment property.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things. So they all love motor racing or cars, and they all had property. Those were the two things that every single one of my clients had. So I used to sit and talk to them about it. And just learn as much as I could.
Yeah.
I still couldn't find that missing piece of the jigsaw.
Yeah.
And that's what stalled me for so long.
Yeah. Wow. So did you manage to break into that, or is that something that up to now you're figuring out and working out how you actually get to sort those numbers out?
Well, that's where I kind of I decided I needed to get some sort of property training.
Yeah.
Which I knew it was available, and I thought, you spend all your life going through school being taught how to do stuff to then go and get a job.
Yeah.
But then most people go to their job and they just do their job.
Yeah.
Why are they not having more training, or why are they not trying to learn more, or why are they not trying to better themselves? Because it's what they know, and they don't have that mindset or that kind of brain. Their brain doesn't work in that way, that they're trying to always achieve more. And it's not it. I don't want to achieve more because I'm greedy. I want to achieve more because I want to become better. So I was talking to someone about this the other day, and I said I want to know today that I'm better today than I was yesterday, but I'm not as good as I'm going to be tomorrow. That way, I'll always try and better myself.
That's a great way of looking at it, isn't it? That you want to be better than yesterday, but there's always room for improvement, isn't it?
Yeah. And if you're constantly wanting to grow, then it helps keep you motivated, keep you focused. Well, it certainly does for me anyway. But I knew that I needed. We'd learned a lot of mistakes in property and investing. We'd kind of become accidental landlords just because we got the concept, but there was still a disconnect. And that was when I thought, you know what, I need to be getting into this full time. When should I do it? Should I do it when I'm 45? Should I do it when I'm 50? Should I do it when I'm 60 and go, wow, I could have done it when I was 40? I thought, you know what, I've just got to do it now. And also for me, I've witnessed 3 and 4 property cycles because I've always been interested in it. So I've seen that happening. So I've been stood at that playground, which was property. Looking in at that and watching what had gone on over all these decades. and I thought, I can't figure it out. Whatever it is, I can't figure it out, and I need help.
Yeah.
That's where I started to go, I've got to get some property training from someone, and that's when I started to look. And then I found the people that I wanted to go with.
Yeah.
Went with them, and I've only looked back to reflect.
Yeah.
The rest of it's just looking forward.
Wow, brilliant. And it's interesting there you mentioned, the mindset thing, and how, people get an education, go into a job, and they're just doing that repetitively without, additional training, whatever. But it all boils down to what you mentioned earlier, probably about the environment they grow up in as well. If they are sort of programmed with just to go to school, get a career, and get a good job, and work through the ladder in a corporate structure like that, that's all they get to know in a way. So to some extent, to actually break out of that cycle, it takes maybe some life-changing event that would happen to people. Either they lose the job, or something happens and they have a light bulb moment to say, maybe there is another world out there, and which is what you followed in the end, the entrepreneur side, but to seek training to actually get better at it. And that word mindset is key, isn't it? Yeah, the mindset.